He didn't read the deed. He just smiled, grabbed the pen, and signed like it was a receipt. And I let him. Because sometimes the safest thing you can do is let a person think they're winning. When Derek and I bought the house, it didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning. We were 27 and 30, still young enough to believe love could solve math. We found the brick ranch on Cedar Ridge Drive after 3 months of open houses that smelled like staged cookies and desperation. The yard wasn't big, but it had a maple tree that threw the red leaves in October and a cracked concrete walkway that Derek promised he'd fix as soon as we have time. We stood in the empty living room with our hands linked and imagined a couch, a Christmas tree, a child's laughter. Derek kissed my forehead and said, "This is ours." At the closing, we signed so many pages my wrist cramped. Derek joked with the notary, made the banker laugh, acted like the whole world was cheering for him. I remember the loan officer sliding the deed across and saying, "Joint tenants with rights of survivorship." I didn't know what it meant then. I just heard "together," and I wanted that. The first year was normal enough. Derek worked, I worked, we painted the kitchen. Then the cracks started. Not the kind you can patch with spackle. Derek started keeping score. If I bought groceries, he'd say, "I paid the electric." If I worked late, he'd say, "Must be nice to have a job that matters." If I asked him to pick up Lila from daycare after she was born, he'd sigh like I was asking him to carry a mountain. When my mother offered the down payment money, Derek accepted it like it was his inheritance. He thanked her with a handshake, then called it our blessing when he told people the story. But my mother watched him the way she watched the weather. She'd lived long enough to recognize storms. One night when Lila was still a baby, my mother sat at my kitchen table and said, "Men like that don't leave you with dignity. They leave you with paperwork." I laughed because I didn't want to believe her. She didn't laugh. "Promise me," she said again, eyes shining, "that if things ever get ugly, you'll protect your child first." I promised. 2 years later, Derek had his first business dip, a couple of bad jobs, a client who didn't pay. Suddenly he was snapping about money, about unfairness, about how the world never gave him what he deserved. He opened a credit card without telling me, then another, then a home equity line of credit application that got denied because I caught it in the mail and asked questions. That was the first time he looked at me like I was an enemy. "You don't trust me?" he said. "I trust what I can see," I replied. The week after that, my mother called me from her attorney's office. "Come today," she said. "Bring your ID." I went, confused. Her estate attorney was gentle but direct. "Your mother wants to formalize her contribution," he said, "to protect your daughter's housing stability." He explained slowly what it meant to treat her down payment as a documented gift tied to separate property interest, how a spouse could quitclaim interest, how a waiver of partition could prevent forced sale tactics. It felt extreme. It felt like planning for a fire while you were still smelling fresh paint. But my mother wasn't guessing anymore. She'd seen Derek's face when money didn't obey him. Derek signed back then too, in that attorney's office, rolling his eyes the whole time. He signed because he wanted the down payment story to stay clean. He signed because he believed he'd never need to fight me for the house, because he believed he'd always control me anyway. He didn't read that deed either. He glanced, joked, and signed. And because I wanted peace, I didn't remind him. I didn't use it. I didn't wave it around. I just kept the recorded copy filed where he couldn't touch it, like a fire extinguisher you pray you never need. Then the marriage finally collapsed in the most ordinary way, not with screaming, with silence. Derek started sleeping on the couch, then not coming home, then blaming me for the emptiness he created. When I asked for counseling, he smirked and said, "You just want someone to tell me I'm wrong." When I finally filed for divorce, he acted offended, like I'd broken a contract he never honored. That was when the threats started. Not about love, about assets. "You'll regret it," he said. "You think you can leave and keep my house?" My house. His house. He'd already made it a possession in his mind, so by the time he showed up in my kitchen in late September with that folder, pretending he was doing me a favor, I wasn't meeting the man I married. I was meeting the man my mother had warned me about. And I already knew the only way to beat him was to let him underestimate the paper. It was a Tuesday morning in late September in Maple Glen, Ohio. Sunlight poured through my kitchen window, turning the dust in the air into tiny sparks. My daughter, Lila, was already at school. The house was quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum and my own breathing. My ex-husband, Derek Hale, stood at my counter in a navy suit he wore when he wanted to look like the hero in his own story. He set a thick folder down between us. "Just sign these," he said, tapping the top page. "Then the house stays clean, no drama, no court. We sell when I say, split when I say, and everybody moves on." He said everybody, like I wasn't the only one who had been paying the mortgage since the day he walked out. "Why would I sign anything you brought?" I asked. He chuckled. "Because you don't have a choice, Amy. The deed is still in both our names. You can't keep it without me. You'll waste your savings on lawyers. You'll lose. And then you'll be begging to rent some sad apartment." There it was. Not law. Not logic. The fantasy of me begging. I kept my face soft, tired, defeated. I let him feel powerful. Because the truth was, Derek wasn't wrong that the deed mattered. He was wrong about what it said. 2 years earlier, my mother had slid a notarized envelope across a bank desk and whispered, "Promise me you'll protect Lila." Her down payment money came with one condition. My child would never be homeless because a man got angry. Derek never cared about fine print. Derek cared about winning. I picked up his folder, flipped slowly, like a woman who didn't understand contracts. Derek leaned back, satisfied. "I'm doing you a favor," he said. I nodded. "Okay." That word startled him. He expected a fight. He leaned forward. "So, sign." "Before I do," I said gently, "I need you to sign mine." He frowned. "What is that?" "A deed," I said, like it was nothing. "A correction. My lender wants it to streamline the refinance." The word refinance made him sit up. Leverage, control, something he could brag about later. He snatched the paper and scanned the top. Address, parcel number, legal description. My name, his name. He saw the word grantor and assumed it meant power. He didn't read the deed. He skimmed. He didn't slow down long enough to notice the sentence tucked inside the special warranty paragraph. The sentence that would decide who owned the house when he tried to take it. "Where do I sign?" he asked, already picking up the pen. "Here," I said. He signed with a flourish. Then he slid it back toward me. "Now sign mine." I smiled, small and tired. "Sure." I took the pen, and I signed nothing. I sealed my deed in an envelope, like it was fragile, and stood. "What are you doing?" Derek asked. "Recording it," I said. "You can leave your papers. I'll look later." His smile vanished. "No. You sign now." I met his eyes. "Derek, You just told me I don't have a choice. So why are you scared of me reading your papers? His jaw tightened. He stepped closer, voice low. I'm giving you one chance. If you don't sign, I'll file to force a sale. I'll have you removed. Removed? Like I was a couch he'd decided to donate. I nodded again. Okay. That calm made him furious. He stormed out and slammed the door hard enough to rattle Lila's school photo on the wall. When the house went quiet, my hands finally shook. By noon, I was in the office of my attorney, Marisol Vega. Marisol was mid-40s, hair pulled back tight, eyes sharper than her glasses. She read the deed Derek had signed without blinking. Then she tapped a paragraph and looked up. This is the part he didn't read, she said. She turned the page toward me. The sentence was small, almost polite. Grantor hereby conveys and quitclaims all right, title, and interest to grantee, to be held in fee simple absolute. And below it, the real lock on the door. Grantor waives the right to partition and waives any claim to compel sale. Partition was Derek's favorite threat. It was how he imagined he could force me out by law if he couldn't force me out by fear. He had signed that weapon away. Marisol leaned back. If this is recorded properly, he can file whatever he wants, but he won't get a forced sale. My throat tightened. So, he can't take it. He can try, she said, but the court won't reward a tantrum. Record it, I said. We will, she replied. Today. That afternoon, the county recorder stamped the deed into public record. Paper became power with one clean seal. Derek found out within days. I know because he didn't come like a man who made a mistake. He came like a man who'd been robbed. A process server knocked on my door at 7:12 a.m. while I was pouring cereal. Lila sat at the table in her school hoodie, watching cartoons. You've been served, the man said, handing me an envelope. Lila's spoon froze midair. I forced a smile. Thank you. When the door shut, I opened it with shaking fingers. Derek had filed a petition to partition the property, to force a sale, as if the waiver clause didn't exist. He also filed a motion claiming I was wasting marital assets and denying him access. The papers read like a story where he was the victim and I was the villain, holding his life hostage. That night, Derek called. You got it? He asked, voice bright. Good, now you understand I'm serious. You're wasting money, I said calmly. Silence. Then his voice dropped. You think you're smart. I think you didn't read the deed, I said. He inhaled like he'd been slapped. You tricked me, he hissed. That deed is fraud. I'll prove it. I'll bury you. I let the threat sit in the air. Okay, I said. He slammed the phone down. The first hearing happened in mid-October. Courtroom 3C smelled like paper and old coffee. Derek stood across from me in a tailored suit, his attorney beside him, both of them projecting certainty like it was armor. Derek's attorney started confidently. Your Honor, my client seeks partition of jointly owned real estate. The respondent refuses to cooperate with sale. We request an order compelling the property to be listed and sold. Marisol stood. Objection. Partition is barred by waiver. We have a recorded quitclaim deed transferring his interest to my client and expressly waiving partition rights. The judge held out his hand. Let me see it. Marisol handed up the deed. The judge read slowly, eyes moving down the page, then to the notary block. He looked at Derek. Mr. Hale, did you sign this deed? Derek stood straighter. Yes, Your Honor, but I didn't understand. Did you sign it? The judge repeated. Yes. Was it notarized in your presence? Yes. Were you forced? Derek hesitated. No. The judge nodded once. Then it stands unless you can prove fraud. Petition for partition is denied. Denied. Derek's confidence cracked like glass. His attorney tried to pivot. Your Honor, we request temporary access. Marisol's voice stayed calm. He transferred his interest. He has no right of access. And we have documented harassment. The judge's gaze sharpened. Harassment? Marisol presented call logs, a few messages, and the one thing Derek had been stupid enough to do. He'd left a voicemail at 2:17 a.m. saying, "Sleep well. Enjoy it while it lasts." The judge's expression hardened. "Temporary protective order," he said. "No contact except through counsel. No presence at the home." Derek lost his first battle in minutes. After the first hearing, Derek didn't retreat. He reorganized his anger into a campaign. It started with my phone lighting up with unknown numbers all day. I'd answer thinking it was Lila's school, and instead I'd hear a stranger's voice, cheerful and invasive. "Hi, ma'am. I'm calling about the property on Cedar Ridge Drive. Are you still looking to sell?" The first time I said, "No," and hung up. The second time I said, "How did you get this number?" The man hesitated. We were referred." By the fifth call, I understood what Derek was doing. He was blasting my information to investors and agents, trying to make my own life feel unstable, like the ground under my house was already moving. Marisol told me, "Don't block them, log them." So I made a spreadsheet at my kitchen table, timestamps and notes, the way you inventory damage after a storm. Then Evelyn Hale showed up. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon while Lila was at a friend's birthday party, when she knew I'd be alone. Her white SUV rolled into my driveway like she owned the space. She walked up my porch in pearls and a pastel sweater, smiling with the confidence of a woman who had never been told no. "I'm here to talk sense into you," she announced. "You can't just show up," I said, keeping the screen door between us. She pushed inside anyway, like my boundary was a suggestion. "You were always ungrateful," she said, scanning my living room. "Derek gave you everything, and now you're stealing from him." I let the words slide off me. "This is my home," I said. "Leila's home." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "You're keeping his daughter from him." "She sees him on his scheduled weekends," I said. "You know that." Evelyn's smile tightened. "And you think you can hide behind your little lawyer, but we know people. We know how courts work." She said it like a threat, like the courthouse was her country club. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a key ring, my old key, the one I'd thought Derek returned. She dangled it between two fingers, watching my face like she wanted to flinch. "He still has access," she said softly. My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed steady. "Give that back." Evelyn tilted her head. "Or what?" I lifted my phone, already recording. "Or you can keep threatening me on video, and we'll see how it plays in court." For the first time, her confidence wavered. Not because she suddenly cared about right and wrong, but because she cared about optics. She snapped the key back into her purse and sniffed. "You always were dramatic." "I'm documenting," I corrected. She walked out with her chin high, but the message had landed. They were going to test every door. That night, I changed every lock. I didn't do it quietly either. I hired a licensed locksmith who left a receipt with his company logo in bold letters, and I saved it like it was a shield. When Derek texted me through his sister's number, because the protective order had already started to tighten, I forwarded it to Marisol without replying. A week later, Derek tried the kid route. He sent Lila a plush bear through his sister, a cheap stuffed thing wearing a tiny shirt that said, "Daddy's girl." Lila held it at the kitchen table, confused. Is Dad mad at you? My throat tightened. Dad is stressed, I said. Adults get stressed. She watched my face for a long moment, the way kids do when they're trying to understand the adult world without being crushed by it. Then she nodded and hugged the bear anyway, because she wanted the world to be simple. That was the part Derek never understood. He thought the fight was about me. He didn't see that the fight was about what Lila would learn, whether love meant control, whether home could be taken like a trophy, whether women had to shrink to survive. Derek escalated again by attacking my credit. A notification popped up on my phone one afternoon. New inquiry, auto loan. I hadn't applied for anything. Then another, credit card application. Then another. I called the bureau in a shaking voice and froze my credit, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Marisol's voice stayed calm when I told her. Add it to the file, she said. This isn't random. It's pressure. The legal fight was turning into a financial one, just like Derek liked, because money is a leash if you can make someone afraid to breathe. So I took away his leash. Marisol helped me set up a new bank account in my name only for household expenses and Lila's needs. We moved my direct deposit. We updated automatic drafts. We tightened everything Derek had ever touched, like we were sealing the seams of a boat before a storm. And still, he kept trying. He sent an inspector to my house while I was at work, a man with no badge and a clipboard who claimed he needed to verify occupancy. My neighbor called me instead of opening the door, and I drove home shaking, furious, grateful. Another time, an envelope arrived with a fake notice of hearing, printed on cheap paper, telling me I had missed court and my home would be seized. It was childish, but it was meant to trigger panic, and for one awful second it worked. Then I looked at the letterhead and saw the mistakes. Wrong case number, wrong judge. Derek wasn't just angry, he was sloppy. And sloppy is what courts punish. Marisol requested discovery not only for the lender contact, but for Derek's communications with anyone he used as a proxy. If he wanted to play puppet master, we wanted strings. That's when his attorney started calling Marisol with a new tone. Less swagger, more caution. We'd like to discuss settlement, he said one afternoon. Marisol glanced at me and muted the phone. He's scared, she whispered. I felt a flicker of relief, followed by a darker understanding. Men like Derek don't settle because they suddenly find empathy. They settle because they're planning something else. Marisol unmuted. We'll consider offers in writing, she said. Derek's attorney tried to sound reasonable. Mr. Hale just wants compensation for his equity. He believes he's entitled. Marisol's voice stayed sharp. He signed a deed transferring his interest. He waived partition. He is not entitled to leverage. There was a pause. Then the attorney said, He maintains he was misled. Marisol replied, Then he can explain that under oath. The call ended. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway after work, hands on the steering wheel, staring at my front door like it might disappear. I realized something that made my chest ache. I wasn't tired from the work. I was tired from being hunted. Not with knives. With paper. With calls. With whispers. With the constant feeling that someone could rearrange my life with one forged line. I went inside anyway. I made dinner. I helped Lila with homework. I did the ordinary things because ordinary things are what you fight to keep. And every 3 or 4 minutes of my life, Derek found a new way to remind me he was still trying. A new number, a new letter, a new attempt to make my home feel temporary. But every time, Marisol's file grew thicker, and every page he added was another nail in his own coffin. And that's when he stopped fighting clean. He filed a motion to set aside the deed, claiming fraud and misrepresentation. He tried to argue he'd been confused, that I'd rushed him. Then he did something worse. He called my lender. I found out because the mortgage company left a voicemail. We received an inquiry from someone claiming to be an owner. They requested payoff details and attempted to change contact information. We flagged it. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just anger. It was sabotage. Marisol listened, eyes cold. He's moving into fraud, she said. Good. Good? My voice shook. Because fraud is punishable, she replied. Harassment is annoying. Fraud ends people. She filed for expedited discovery and scheduled Derek for deposition. If he wanted to claim I tricked him, he could say it under oath. Before that happened, Derek tried one more scare tactic. I came home in early November and found a yellow notice taped to my front door. Notice of default. My heart stopped. Then I saw the small print. It wasn't my lender. It was a foreclosure assistance company, an obvious scam designed to terrify. I called Marisol. He put a fake default notice on my door. Take photos, she said, and check your doorbell camera. I opened the app and rewound. There he was, Derek, in daylight, walking up my steps, taping the notice to my door, then turning toward the camera and smirking like he'd just won a game. He didn't read the deed, and he didn't read the room. Marisol watched the footage twice. Now we have him, she said. Between the fake default notice and the deposition, Derek tried to drag the fight into every corner of my life. He sent me offers through his attorney that were really threats dressed up as negotiation. One letter claimed he would release claims if I paid him a lump sum within 10 days, an amount that didn't even match the equity he'd contributed, because the number wasn't about fairness. It was about pain. Another letter demanded that I vacate the property for an appraisal. Marisol wrote back, one sentence, access denied. Any appraisal can be conducted by mutual appointment with proper notice. Your client has no legal interest. Derek responded by trying to schedule a mediation he could turn into a stage. He wanted me in a room where he could stare, sigh, and perform victimhood until someone pressured me to compromise. Marisol agreed, but only with conditions: separate arrival, separate departure, no direct contact, and the mediator provided with the recorded deed in advance. The day of mediation, Derek showed up with a smug smile and a fresh suit. He brought his mother because he couldn't resist an audience. Evelyn sat in the waiting area like a queen awaiting tribute. The mediator, a gray-haired man with calm eyes, invited us into a conference room. Marisol and I sat on one side. Derek and his attorney sat on the other. Evelyn stayed outside, but her presence pressed against the walls. Derek opened with a speech about wanting peace for our daughter. Then he slid a paper across the table and said, all she has to do is sign this. She keeps living there until it sells, and then we split like adults. Marisol didn't touch the paper. My client is not selling, she said. Your client waived partition. The deed is recorded. There is nothing to split. Derek's smile twitched. You keep saying that like it's magic. Marisol's eyes didn't move. It's law. The mediator glanced at the deed copy, then at Derek. Mr. Hale, do you understand you signed away your ability to compel a sale? Derek leaned back, offended. I signed because she lied. The mediator's voice stayed gentle. That may be your claim, but you'll need proof. Derek's attorney tried to steer. We believe the circumstances show misrepresentation. Marisol cut in calmly. And we believe the circumstances show an adult chose not to read. The mediator rubbed his forehead like he was already tired. What is it you want, Mr. Hale? Derek's eyes slid to me for the first time in the room. I want what's mine, he said. Marisol asked. Define mine. Derek's jaw tightened. Half. Marisol nodded. Half of what you signed away. Derek slammed his palm on the table. The sound made the mediator flinch. See? Derek snapped, pointing at me. She does that. She smirks. She thinks she's better than me. I wasn't smirking. I was breathing. But Derek couldn't tell the difference between calm and contempt. The mediator raised both hands. Mr. Hale, please. Derek kept going, voice rising. She thinks she can steal my house with a trick, but I'll drag her through court for years if I have to. I'll make sure she never feels safe in that place again. Marisol's voice sharpened just slightly. Thank you, she said. Derek blinked. What? Marisol pointed at the mediator. Did you hear that? The mediator's face tightened. I did. Marisol turned to the court reporter she'd brought. Not a standard move for mediation, but Marisol didn't do standard when dealing with men like Derek. Please note that statement, she said. Derek's attorney leaned toward him, whispering furiously. Derek's face flushed. The mediator ended the session 10 minutes later. Mediation is not productive at this time, he said carefully. Outside, Evelyn tried to block my path, lips tight. You're destroying him, she hissed. I looked at her, voice quiet. He's doing that himself. Evelyn's eyes flashed. We're not finished. Marisol guided me past her without a word. In the parking lot, my legs shook as if my body had been holding back fear on a leash. Marisol opened her car door and said, He just threatened your safety in front of a mediator. I swallowed. Is that good for us? Marisol's gaze was steady. It's terrible for him. That night, Derek sent another message through a cousin's number. You're going to pay for humiliating me. I forwarded it, again, and watched the file grow. Because every time Derek tried to pull me back into chaos, he was building the case that would finally end him. The deposition happened at the end of November in a beige conference room with a ticking clock and a court reporter who typed like a machine. Derek sat across from me, trying to look relaxed. His attorney sat beside him, looking less relaxed. Marisol started gently. Mr. Hale, you filed a motion claiming the quitclaimed deed was obtained by fraud, correct? Yes, Derek said, smooth. You signed the deed on Ms. Carter's kitchen counter? Yes. You can read, correct? Yes. You signed contracts for your contracting business? Yes. So reading documents is part of your life. Derek shrugged. She rushed me. One document, Marisol corrected, not a stack. And you weren't forced. You chose not to read. Derek's cheeks flushed. I trusted her. Marisol tilted her head. Your estranged spouse, under a pending divorce. You trusted her. Derek swallowed. Yes. Then Marisol slid a document across the table. Let's discuss Exhibit 12, she said. This agreement. Derek's confidence returned. That's what she signed. She agreed to pay me for my equity or the title reverts. I stared at the signature. It looked like mine, if someone had tried to draw it from memory with a shaky hand. Marisol asked softly, You're certain she signed this? Absolutely, Derek said. You watched her sign it? Yes. When? June 10th, he said quickly. Where? In our living room? Who else was there? My mother, he said, too fast. Marisol didn't react. She simply opened a folder. Here's a hotel receipt, she said, sliding it forward. Ms. Carter was in Indianapolis on June 10th for work training. Here are the emails confirming attendance. Here is the mileage report. Derek blinked hard, like he was trying to erase reality. Marisol continued. And here is the PDF metadata. This document was created July 22nd and modified July 23rd. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. Marisol's voice stayed calm. So tell me, Mr. Hale, how did she sign an agreement in your living room when she was in another state, and the file didn't exist until 6 weeks later? Derek looked at his attorney, panic rising. Marisol slid the doorbell footage screenshot forward, Derek's face, clear as day, taping the fake default notice. That's you, she said. Derek's jaw clenched. Yes. While under a protective order. His attorney shifted in his chair. Marisol leaned in slightly. Did you forge Exhibit 12? No, Derek snapped. Did your mother? No. Then you will consent to handwriting comparison. Derek froze. That was the moment the trap closed, because if he refused, he looked guilty. If he agreed, he would be proven guilty. Marisol didn't need him to confess. She needed him to commit. In January, we were back in court. The judge read the handwriting expert's report that concluded the signature was not mine. He watched the doorbell footage of Derek taping the fake default notice to my door. He listened to the lender voicemail and Marisol's summary of Derek's attempted contact changes. Then he looked at Derek like he was something stuck to the bottom of a shoe. Mr. Hale, the judge said, do you still maintain Mrs. Carter signed this agreement? Derek stood, voice tight. I believed she did. Believed, the judge repeated. Based on what? Derek's attorney jumped up. Your Honor, my client may have been mistaken. This is not a misunderstanding, the judge cut in. This is a forged document filed with this court. The room felt colder. Sanctions granted, the judge said. Attorney's fees to respondent, court costs, monetary penalties for frivolous filings, protective order extended, and this matter is referred to the county prosecutor for review of potential forgery charges. Referral. Prosecutor. Forgery. Derek's face went gray. Evelyn sat behind him, pearls bright, mouth tight, eyes darting like she wanted to vanish. Derek blurted, She tricked me with the deed. The judge's gaze sharpened. The deed you signed, the deed you had notarized, the deed you did not read. Silence. The law expects adults to read what they sign, the judge said, voice flat. This court will not rescue you from your own negligence, nor will it tolerate your misconduct. When the gavel fell, Derek's power fell with it. The months after were quieter, but not easy. There were phone calls between lawyers, filings, deadlines. Derek tried a weak appeal, and it was dismissed without fanfare. Then the prosecutor moved. Derek signed a plea deal, probation, community service, restitution, a record that would follow him like smoke. He didn't get jail, but he got something worse in his mind, a label, fraud. And once the court labeled him what he was, people stopped treating his anger like a respectable opinion. After the sanctions hearing, I expected Derek to vanish. Instead, he tried to rewrite the narrative one last time. He told mutual friends that I had set him up. He told his cousins that Marisol was corrupt. He told anyone who would listen that I had stolen his house with a trick. But lies have a shelf life when there's a public record. The county recorder's website didn't care about his feelings. It showed the deed. It showed the date. It showed the notary. It showed the waiver. It showed his own signature sitting there like a confession. I printed that page and kept it in my kitchen drawer. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed a reminder when my body started to spiral. Proof quiets panic. The prosecutor's process was slow, but it was steady. An investigator called me and asked for copies. I emailed everything: the forged agreement, the metadata, the voicemail, the doorbell video, the list of calls from cash buyers, the credit inquiries, the locksmith receipt. When the investigator asked, "Do you believe Mr. Hale did this himself?" I heard my own voice answer without hesitation. "Yes," I said, "because he believes rules are for other people." The investigator paused, then said, "That belief is why people get charged." The day Derek signed his plea deal, Marisol called me. "It's done," she said. I gripped the phone so hard my fingers hurt. "What does done mean?" "It means he admitted enough," she replied. "Probation, restitution, conditions, and if he violates, it escalates." A weight slid off my chest, but underneath it was something raw: grief. Not for Derek. For the years I spent thinking I could reason with someone who only understood domination. That weekend, I took Lila to a hardware store and let her pick the color for her bedroom walls. We chose a soft lavender that made the room feel like calm had a color. While we painted, she asked, "Do we have to move?" I swallowed paint-thick air and kept my voice light. "No, baby, we're staying." "Forever?" she asked. "As long as you want," I said. She smiled, small and relieved, and kept rolling paint on the wall like she was sealing the promise into the drywall. A week later, my lender approved my refinance. It wasn't about getting cash. It was about clarity, about removing Derek's name from any lingering paperwork, about tightening the chain of ownership until there was nothing left for him to yank. At the closing, the notary slid documents toward me and asked me to sign. My hand didn't shake this time. I read every page, every line, slowly, because I knew exactly what Derek had done with unread pages. When I finished, the notary smiled. "All set. All set." Such a small phrase for something that had once felt impossible. I drove home with a folder in my passenger seat, the kind Derek used to throw around like props. Only mine wasn't a prop. It was protection. That's why the sheriff pickup mattered so much. It wasn't just about boxes in a garage. It was the physical ending of a story Derek tried to keep alive. He could threaten on paper. He could posture in court. He could try to scare me into leaving. But in the end, the law did what it's supposed to do when you insist on evidence. It drew a line. And for the first time in years, I felt my life fall on the safe side of it. But the moment that finally rewired my nervous system, the moment my body believed what the paper already said, came in April. A sheriff's SUV rolled slowly down my street and stopped in front of my house. For a second, my heart jumped, because Derek had promised me a sheriff once. He'd promised removal, humiliation, the end. Only this time, the deputy walked up my steps and asked for me by my name. "Ms. Carter?" he said. "Yes." "I'm here with an order," he said, handing me a packet. "Mr. Hale has a scheduled window to retrieve any personal property remaining in your garage. He will be accompanied by law enforcement. After that, he is barred from the property. No trespass." I exhaled, and it came out like a laugh that almost turned into a sob. Derek had left boxes in my garage when he moved out. Tools, old furniture, junk he never came back for. Later, he always said. Later was his excuse to keep a toe in my life. Not anymore. The pickup was scheduled for Saturday at 10 a.m. Lila helped me stack Derek's boxes by the garage door, neat and ready, like we were shipping them out of our lives. "Why does Dad need a deputy?" she asked, eyes wide. "Because the court wants everyone to feel safe," I said, keeping my voice gentle. At 9:58, the sheriff's SUV pulled up. At 10 o'clock, Derek's car followed. He stepped out wearing jeans and a hoodie, not a suit, no polish, no performance. He looked smaller without a courtroom to echo him. The deputy nodded at him. "Mr. Hale, 30 minutes. Stay in the garage area only. No contact with Mrs. Carter except through me." Derek's eyes flicked toward Lila, who stood behind me holding my hand. For a heartbeat, something human crossed his face. Then the bitterness came back and he looked away. He walked into the garage and started carrying boxes to his trunk. The power reversal wasn't loud. It wasn't a speech. It was a quiet choreography. The man who once told me I'd be removed like furniture was now being supervised while he removed his own leftovers. He carried one box, then another, moving fast like he wanted to disappear. At one point, he paused with a framed photo in his hands, our wedding picture shoved into a box long ago. He stared at it, jaw tight, then set it back like it burned. 5 minutes, the deputy called. Derek shoved the last box into his trunk and slammed it shut. He stood there, breathing hard, and finally looked at me. "You didn't have to do all this," he said, voice hoarse. I kept my tone calm. "Yes," I replied. "I did." His mouth opened, but no words came. He looked at Lila again, and for once he didn't try to charm her or guilt her. He just looked like a man realizing he had built a cage and locked himself inside. The deputy gestured. "Mr. Hale, you need to leave." Derek got into his car. As he backed out, his tires rolled over the edge of my driveway, where Lila's chalk drawings still lingered faintly. He paused at the curb, as if he might say something. Then he drove away. The deputy handed me the final paper. "Order of no trespass," he said. "If he comes back, call us." I took it, fingers steady. When the SUV drove off, the street went quiet again. Lila squeezed my hand. "Is it over?" I looked at my porch, my doorbell camera, my windows catching afternoon light. I thought of the deed recorded in the county system, stamped and permanent. "It's over," I said. In the weeks that followed, I started noticing little changes in myself. I stopped checking the blinds every time a car slowed outside. I stopped jumping when the phone rang. I started leaving my shoes by the door like I expected to come back home, not like I might be locked out. It wasn't joy yet. It was something quieter. The return of normal. The kind of normal you only appreciate after someone tries to steal it. Even my breathing felt less like panic. That night, after Lila went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table in the same spot where Derek had signed, without reading. I pulled out a copy of the deed and laid it flat. I read every line slowly, like a prayer. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to remember the thing that saved us wasn't luck. It was preparation. It was my mother's shaking hands and her stubborn love. It was Marisol's sharp mind. It was my decision to stop begging for fairness and start building protection. Derek thought ink was a formality. He thought signatures were theater. He thought intimidation could overwrite law. But the deed had been written for the version of him I eventually met. And when he signed it, he signed away the last piece of control he had over my life. The next morning, I made coffee. I packed Lila's lunch. I watched her run out the door, backpack bouncing, hair in a messy ponytail, safe in the only home she remembered. And as the door shut behind her, I stood in the quiet house and understood something I wish someone had told me years earlier. Safety isn't a feeling. It's a document, recorded, sealed, and defended. And sometimes, the most powerful words in your life are the ones someone else didn't bother to read.